The roar of the crowd, the sting of sweat in his eyes, the taste of blood, these were the sensations Muhammad Ali craved. He was a warrior in the ring, a poet with his fists, a dancer on the canvas. He was the greatest, but even legends are mortal. The man who once floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee, found himself trapped in a body that had begun to betray him. Parkinson's disease, a cruel and relentless opponent, had entered the ring. The tremors, the slow movements, the slurred speech. These were not the marks of a champion, but the cruel irony of a life spent in the brutal ballet of boxing. Ali, once the epitome of agility and wit, now struggled with the simplest tasks. The world watched in sorrow as the man who had captivated them with his speed and charisma now battled a foe he could not outwit or outmaneuver. His story, though unique in its scale and celebrity, is not an isolated one. It serves as a stark reminder of the price boxers pay for their time in the ring. Boxing, in its purest form, is a display of athleticism, strategy, and sheer will. It is a sport that demands discipline, heart, and an almost superhuman tolerance for pain. But beneath the surface of this captivating spectacle lies a darker reality, a world of inherent and often invisible risks. While other sports carry their share of injuries, boxing stands apart. The very objective of the sport is to inflict physical harm on your opponent, to concuss, to bruise, to break down. Each blow, a thunderclap of force against bone and brain, carries the potential for lasting damage. We see the cuts, the swelling, the knockouts, the immediate and visible consequences of this violent dance. But what we often miss are the silent injuries, the ones that fester beneath the surface, slowly eroding the health and well-being of these modern-day gladiators. The tragic irony of boxing is that the very attributes that make a great fighter, the ability to absorb punishment, the unwavering determination, the relentless pursuit of victory, are often the same traits that contribute to their downfall. Years of absorbing blows to the head can leave a boxer with a debilitating neurological condition known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. This progressive brain disease, often diagnosed posthumously, can manifest in a range of symptoms, from memory loss and impaired judgment to depression, dementia, and suicidal thoughts. It is a grim reminder that the true cost of a career in boxing is often paid long after the final bell has rung. The stories of boxers battling CTE and other neurological impairments are heartbreakingly common. They serve as a stark reminder that behind the glitz and glamour of the boxing world lies a darker reality, one where the pursuit of glory can come at a devastating cost. While the physical toll of boxing is undeniable, the psychological impact can be equally profound. Imagine stepping into the ring, knowing that your opponent is trained to inflict pain, to exploit any weakness, to ultimately knock you unconscious. This constant pressure, coupled with the risk of serious injury or even death, takes a mental toll that few can truly comprehend. The culture of boxing, with its emphasis on toughness, stoicism, and the suppression of vulnerability, can exacerbate these psychological challenges. Boxers are often conditioned to ignore pain, to downplay injuries, to push themselves beyond their physical and mental limits. This internalized pressure to remain strong can make it difficult for boxers to seek help when they are struggling. As a result, many suffer in silence, their internal battles hidden behind a facade of bravado and machismo. Section 5. Stepping into the ring of truth. The purpose of this exploration is not to demonize boxing or to diminish the incredible athleticism and courage of those who choose to step into the ring. It is, however, a call for greater awareness. for a deeper understanding of the risks inherent in this brutal and unforgiving sport. We must acknowledge the physical and psychological toll that boxing takes on its participants, both in the short and long term. We must move beyond the romanticized image of the sport and confront the uncomfortable reality that lies beneath the surface. It is only by shining a light on these hidden dangers that we can begin to have an honest conversation about the future of boxing, a conversation that prioritizes the health and well-being of the fighters above the entertainment value of the sport, a conversation that acknowledges the human cost of every punch thrown and every blow absorbed. Section 1. The Human Punching Bag. The human body is a marvel of resilience, but it has its limits. In boxing, those limits are tested with every fight. A boxer, in essence, volunteers to be a human punching bag, absorbing blows that can generate hundreds of pounds of force. Each punch, a micro-explosion of energy, reverberates through the body, leaving a trail of potential damage in its wake. The head, the primary target in boxing, is particularly vulnerable. Encased in a protective shell of bone, the brain floats within a cushion of cerebrospinal fluid. But even this ingenious design has its limits. Repeated blows to the head can cause the brain to collide with the inside of the skull, leading to bruising, bleeding, and long-term neurological damage. While the occasional blow might be shrugged off, the cumulative effect of years of sparring and fighting can be devastating. Imagine a car repeatedly driven into a wall, each impact weakening the frame, damaging the engine until the vehicle is no longer roadworthy. The human body, though remarkably resilient, suffers a similar fate under the relentless assault of boxing. Section 2. The Brain, a Battlefield. The most insidious injuries in boxing are often the ones we can't see. Concussions, often referred to as the invisible injury, are a particular concern. Unlike a broken bone or a cut, a concussion doesn't always manifest in immediate and obvious ways. A boxer may receive a blow to the head, appear momentarily dazed, and then continue fighting, seemingly unharmed. However, beneath the surface, a cascade of neurological events is taking place. The brain, jolted by the impact, experiences a surge of electrical activity and a release of chemicals that can disrupt normal brain function. Symptoms can range from headaches, dizziness, and confusion to memory problems, mood swings, and difficulty concentrating. While most concussions resolve within a few days or weeks, repeated concussions, especially those sustained in close succession, can lead to long-term cognitive impairment. The brain, like a muscle fatigued from overuse, struggles to recover, leaving the boxer vulnerable to more severe and lasting neurological damage. Section 3. Beyond concussions, a body under siege. While the brain bears the brunt of the damage in boxing, the rest of the body is far from immune. The hands, constantly delivering blows, are prone to fractures, sprains, and ligament tears. The shoulders, responsible for generating the power behind each punch, are susceptible to rotator cuff injuries and dislocations. The torso, a frequent target for body blows, can suffer broken ribs, internal bleeding, and organ damage. Even the legs, essential for footwork and balance, are at risk, vulnerable to muscle tears, ligament damage, and stress fractures from the constant pounding on the canvas. These injuries, though often less dramatic than a knockout blow, can be equally debilitating, leading to chronic pain, limited mobility, and an early end to a boxer's career. They serve as a stark reminder that the entire body is a potential casualty in the ring. Section 4. Comparing the scars boxing versus other contact sports. While many sports involve physical contact and the risk of injury, Boxing stands apart in its singular focus on striking the opponent. In football, hockey, or rugby, collisions are often incidental to the game's objective. In boxing, the objective is to inflict pain and disable your opponent with your fists. This fundamental difference is reflected in the types and severity of injuries seen in boxing compared to other contact sports. While concussions are a concern across all contact sports, the incidence rate is significantly higher in boxing. A study published in the Journal of Neurotrauma found that professional boxers are 6 times more likely to suffer a concussion than professional football players. Furthermore, the cumulative effect of repeated blows to the head, a hallmark of boxing, is not typically seen in other sports. While other athletes may experience concussions, they are less likely to endure the same sustained and repetitive head trauma that boxers face throughout their careers. Section 5. A calculated risk, the illusion of control. Some argue that boxers understand the risks involved and willingly accept them as part of the sport. They point to the rigorous training, the strict regulations, and the presence of medical professionals as evidence that boxing is a controlled and calculated risk. While it is true that boxers enter the ring of their own volition, the perception of control can be an illusion. The very nature of boxing, with its inherent violence and the ever-present possibility of a knockout blow, makes it impossible to eliminate risk entirely. Moreover, the culture of boxing, with its emphasis on toughness and the normalization of pain, can cloud judgment and lead boxers to downplay or ignore injuries. This pressure to fight through it can have tragic consequences, as boxers may continue fighting even when their bodies and minds are screaming for them to stop. The physical scars of boxing are often evident, etched onto the faces and bodies of its warriors, but the most insidious damage, the kind that lurks beneath the surface, is far more sinister. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, has emerged from the shadows as a chilling specter, haunting the world of boxing. This progressive brain disease, often diagnosed posthumously, is linked to repeated head trauma, the kind that is synonymous with a career spent trading blows in the ring. The symptoms, a cruel parody of a life lived on the edge, can manifest years or even decades after the final bell. Memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, these are just the opening salvos in CTE's relentless assault. As the disease progresses, it can hijack a boxer's personality, leading to impulsive behavior, aggression, and even dementia. The once sharp mind, capable of strategizing a fight in an instant, becomes a prisoner in its own deteriorating fortress. The physical toll of boxing is undeniable, but the psychological impact can be equally devastating. Imagine stepping into the ring, knowing that your opponent is trained to inflict pain, to exploit any weakness, to ultimately render you unconscious. This constant dance with danger can leave invisible scars on the psyche, wounds that run deeper than any bruise or laceration. Depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. These are just some of the mental health challenges that plague many boxers, both during and after their careers. The very nature of the sport, with its emphasis on aggression, violence, and the suppression of fear, can create a perfect storm for psychological distress. The pressure to win, the fear of failure, the constant threat of injury, these stressors can take a heavy toll on even the most resilient individuals. And yet, the culture of boxing, with its emphasis on stoicism and machismo, often discourages boxers from seeking help, leaving them to grapple with their demons in silence. In the hyper-masculine world of boxing, vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, a chink in the armor that opponents can exploit. This tough guy mentality, while perhaps useful in the ring, can be detrimental outside of it, preventing boxers from seeking help for the emotional and psychological wounds they carry. The stigma surrounding mental health issues is particularly pervasive in sports, where athletes are often expected to be invincible, both physically and mentally. This pressure to maintain a facade of strength can make it difficult for boxers to admit when they are struggling, to reach out for help when they need it most. As a result, many boxers suffer in silence, their internal battles hidden behind a mask of bravado. They may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as alcohol or drug abuse, to numb the pain, further compounding their problems. Section 4. The Price of Glory, When Legends Fade. The tragic irony of boxing is that the very qualities that make a great fighter, the unwavering determination, the ability to absorb punishment, the relentless pursuit of victory, can also contribute to their downfall. Once the cheers fade and the spotlight dims, many boxers are left grappling with the physical and psychological scars of their careers. Muhammad Ali, arguably the most iconic boxer of all time, battled Parkinson's disease for decades, his once fluid movements reduced to tremors, his voice silenced by the disease's cruel grip. Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber who reigned supreme for 12 years, spent his later years battling dementia and financial ruin. These are just two examples of the countless boxers who have paid a heavy price for their time in the ring. Their stories serve as a stark reminder that the glory of victory can be fleeting, while the consequences of a career spent absorbing blows to the head can last a lifetime. Section 5. A Cycle of Risk, From Poverty to Punishment. The path to a boxing career is often paved with hardship. Many fighters come from impoverished backgrounds, drawn to the sport as a way out of poverty, a chance to achieve fame and fortune. This desperation to escape their circumstances can lead them to ignore the risks, to accept the violence as the price of a better life. This cycle of risk is perpetuated by a system that often exploits young fighters, pushing them to fight too often, too soon, and for too little reward. The lure of a big payday can be intoxicating, blinding them to the long-term consequences of their actions. And so the cycle continues, with each generation of fighters stepping into the ring, carrying the weight of their predecessors' sacrifices and scars, hoping to defy the odds and emerge from the crucible of boxing unscathed. Section 1. The Guardians of the Ring. A system in flux. Boxing, despite its inherent brutality, is not a lawless free-for-all. Over the years, a complex system of rules, regulations, and safety measures has evolved, aiming to minimize risks and protect the fighters who put their bodies on the line. Commissions, governing bodies, and medical professionals all play a role in this intricate dance between sport and safety. At the heart of this system lie the boxing commissions, tasked with licensing fighters, sanctioning bouts, and enforcing rules designed to promote fair play and minimize injury. These commissions, often operating at the state or national level, wield considerable power, determining who can fight, where, and under what conditions. But while the intentions may be noble, the effectiveness of these regulatory bodies varies widely. Critics argue that some commissions are too lenient, more concerned with promoting lucrative fights than protecting the well-being of fighters. Others point to inconsistencies in rules and enforcement, creating a patchwork of regulations that can leave fighters vulnerable. Section 2. Weighing the measures from gloves to regulations. The quest for safety in boxing has led to a constant evolution of equipment and rules. Gloves, once bare-knuckle weapons, are now heavily padded, designed to lessen the impact of blows. Ring size, once a matter of arbitrary preference, is now standardized, providing fighters with a defined space to maneuver and potentially reducing the force of falls. Weigh-ins, once a casual affair, are now strictly regulated, ensuring fighters compete against opponents in a similar weight class, theoretically reducing the disparity in punching power and potential for injury. Medical examinations, both pre-fight and post-fight, are mandatory in most jurisdictions, aiming to identify pre-existing conditions and assess potential injuries. But while these measures undoubtedly offer some protection, they are not foolproof. Critics argue that gloves, while reducing hand injuries, may actually increase the likelihood of head trauma by encouraging fighters to deliver more powerful blows. Others question whether regulations alone can truly address the inherent dangers of a sport where the objective is to inflict physical harm. Section 3. Science steps in. The quest for early detection. As the long-term consequences of repeated head trauma become increasingly clear, the world of boxing is turning to science for answers. Researchers are working tirelessly to develop more accurate methods for diagnosing and treating neurological injuries, hoping to identify and protect fighters at risk. Advanced imaging techniques such as MRI and PET scans are being used to study the brains of boxers, both active and retired, searching for telltale signs of damage. Blood tests are being developed to detect biomarkers associated with CTE, potentially providing a way to diagnose the disease in living individuals. These advancements in medical technology offer a glimmer of hope in a sport often shrouded in darkness. Early detection of neurological damage could lead to earlier interventions, potentially prolonging careers and improving the quality of life for boxers long after they hang up their gloves. Section 4. The culture clash, tradition versus progress. The push for greater safety in boxing often collides with the sport's deeply ingrained culture. Boxing, with its roots in ancient Greece and its long history of bare-knuckle brawling, has always been a sport that celebrates toughness, courage, and the ability to endure pain. This warrior mentality, while admirable in many respects, can also be a barrier to change. Some within the boxing community view safety measures as an affront to the sport's traditions, a sign of weakness or a lack of respect for the past. Others argue that the inherent dangers of boxing are part of its allure, that to remove risk entirely would be to fundamentally alter the nature of the sport. This tension between tradition and progress is perhaps nowhere more evident than in the debate over headgear. While amateur boxers are required to wear headgear, professional fighters are not, with many arguing that headgear, while offering some protection, can also impair vision and create a false sense of security. Section 5. A shared responsibility, protecting the fighters, preserving the sport. The future of boxing hinges on finding a delicate balance between preserving the sport's raw athleticism and protecting the well-being of its athletes. This requires a collective effort, a shared responsibility among all stakeholders, from fighters and trainers to promoters, commissions, and medical professionals. Fighters, for their part, must prioritize their long-term health, recognizing that a long and successful career requires more than just toughness and determination. Trainers need to be vigilant, recognizing the signs of injury and prioritizing their fighters' well-being over short-term gains. Promoters and commissions have a moral obligation to prioritize fighter safety, even if it means sacrificing potential profits. Medical professionals must continue to advance the understanding and treatment of boxing-related injuries, providing fighters with the best possible care both during and after their careers. Only through this shared commitment to safety can boxing evolve, shedding its reputation as a brutal and unforgiving sport, and embracing a future where the pursuit of glory doesn't have to come at the cost of a fighter's long-term health and well-being. Section 1. Ghosts of the Ring. When the lights go out, the roar of the crowd, the blinding lights, the adrenaline surge of victory, these are the moments that define a boxer's life. But what happens when the cheers fade, the lights dim, and the ring is empty? For some, the transition to life after boxing is relatively smooth, a chance to pursue new passions and enjoy the fruits of their labor. But for others, the shadows of the ring linger long after the final bell. They walk among us, these warriors of the squared circle, carrying the invisible scars of their battles. Some bear the physical marks of their profession, the slurred speech, the unsteady gait, the tremors that betray the damage inflicted on their brains. Others suffer in silence, their mental and emotional wounds hidden from view, their struggles a testament to the unseen toll of a life spent trading blows. Their stories, often untold and unheard, paint a poignant picture of the sport's human cost. They are a reminder that behind the glitz and glamour of championship belts and million-dollar purses lie the very real stories of individuals who have sacrificed their bodies and minds in pursuit of their dreams. Section 2. The Price of Silence, a champion's untold struggle. Jerry Quarry, a heavyweight contender known for his granite chin and his ability to go toe-to-toe with the best of his era, was once dubbed the Great White Hope. He fought legendary champions like Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman, earning their respect and captivating audiences with his grit and determination. But Quarry's story is also a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the price boxers often pay for their time in the ring. Behind Quarry's tough exterior lay a vulnerability he rarely showed to the world. As his career progressed, the cumulative effect of countless blows to the head began to take its toll. Quarry, once known for his sharp wit and easy charm, became increasingly withdrawn, his speech slurred, his memory fading. He was diagnosed with pugilistic dementia, a cruel irony for a man whose mind had once been as sharp as his fists. Quarry's family watched in despair as the man they loved slowly slipped away, his mind and body ravaged by the sport that had brought him both fame and misfortune. His story highlights the often hidden struggles of many boxers, the silent suffering that can persist long after the cheers have died down. Section 3. A Mother's Plea, the Human Cost of Glory. Behind every fighter stands a network of family and friends, their lives inextricably linked to the triumphs and tragedies that unfold within the ropes. For these individuals, the sport's brutal realities are not abstract concepts but deeply personal experiences that leave an indelible mark. Kathy Duva, a prominent boxing promoter, witnessed the sport's devastating impact firsthand. Her husband, Dan Duva, a renowned trainer and manager, dedicated his life to boxing, guiding the careers of numerous champions. But Dan's passion came at a steep price. He was diagnosed with inoperable brain cancer, a cruel twist of fate that many believe was linked to his years of exposure to the sport's inherent risks. Kathy, now a vocal advocate for increased safety measures in boxing, channels her grief into action, determined to prevent other families from enduring the same heartbreak. Her story is a powerful reminder that the true cost of boxing extends far beyond the ring, impacting the lives of loved ones who watch helplessly as the sport they love exacts its toll. Section 4. From Champion to Advocate. Fighting for a safer ring. Some fighters, forever marked by their experiences in the ring, emerge as powerful voices for change, using their platforms to advocate for greater safety and support for those who follow in their footsteps. They understand, perhaps more than anyone, the risks inherent in their chosen profession, and they feel a responsibility to protect future generations from the same fate. Former heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis, known for his tactical brilliance and devastating punching power, is one such advocate. Lewis, who retired with his faculties intact, witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of boxing on many of his peers. He has become a vocal proponent for stricter safety regulations, improved medical care for fighters, and greater awareness of the long-term health risks associated with the sport. Lewis's advocacy, rooted in his personal experiences and his genuine concern for the well-being of his fellow fighters, has helped to raise awareness and drive change within the sport. His voice, amplified by his status as a boxing legend, serves as a beacon of hope for a safer and more sustainable future for the sport. Section 5. Beyond the Canvas. Stories of Resilience and Redemption. While the risks of boxing are undeniable, it's important to remember that not every story ends in tragedy. Many fighters, even those who have faced adversity and overcome significant challenges, emerge from the sport with their health intact and their spirits unbroken. Their stories offer a message of resilience, determination, and the power of the human spirit to triumph over adversity. Muhammad Ali, despite his long battle with Parkinson's disease, remained a symbol of hope and inspiration, transcending the boundaries of sport to become a global icon for peace and social justice. His courage, both in the ring and in his unwavering fight against his debilitating illness, continues to inspire millions around the world. These stories of resilience and redemption remind us that boxing, for all its flaws and inherent dangers, can also be a powerful force for good. It can teach discipline, foster determination, and provide a pathway out of poverty for countless young people. Making boxing safer is not a simple fix, but a complex puzzle requiring a multifaceted approach. It demands a collective effort from everyone involved, from the fighters risking their lives to the fans cheering from the sidelines. We must acknowledge the inherent brutality of the sport while exploring every avenue to mitigate the dangers it poses. One crucial aspect is strengthening the regulatory bodies that govern the sport. Boxing commissions, often criticized for inconsistent rules and lax enforcement, need to adopt stricter standards and apply them uniformly. This includes more rigorous pre-fight medical examinations, mandatory concussion protocols, and stricter penalties for violations. But regulations alone are not enough. We must also invest in scientific research to better understand and diagnose boxing-related injuries. This includes developing more sensitive tests for concussions, identifying biomarkers for CTE in living individuals, and exploring innovative treatments for neurological damage. The current system of boxing commissions, often operating independently at the state or national level, has led to a patchwork of regulations and inconsistencies in enforcement. A unified governing body, with the authority to establish and enforce standardized safety protocols across the board, could address this issue. This centralized body could oversee everything from fighter licensing and bout sanctioning to ringside medical care and post-fight medical follow-up. It could also play a crucial role in promoting research, funding studies, and implementing evidence-based safety measures. Increased transparency and accountability are also paramount. Commissions should be required to publicly disclose financial records, conflict of interest statements, and injury data. This would allow for greater scrutiny of their decisions and ensure they are prioritizing fighter safety over commercial interests. While boxing will always involve some level of risk, Advancements in equipment and technology can help to minimize the potential for injury. Headgear, while still a subject of debate in professional boxing, has proven effective in reducing head injuries in amateur boxing. Research into new materials and designs could potentially lead to headgear that offers greater protection without compromising vision or performance. The development of more sophisticated sensors, embedded in mouthguards or headgear, could provide real-time data on the force of impacts, allowing for faster detection of potential concussions. This information could empower ringside physicians to make more informed decisions about stopping fights and protecting fighters from further harm. Beyond equipment, optimizing training methods and recovery protocols can also contribute to fighter safety. This includes emphasizing proper technique to minimize unnecessary impacts, incorporating neck-strengthening exercises to reduce the risk of whiplash, and promoting adequate rest and recovery between sparring sessions and fights. Section 4. Changing the culture. A shift in mindset. Perhaps the most challenging yet crucial aspect of making boxing safer lies in changing the sport's deeply ingrained culture. The tough guy mentality, the glorification of pain, and the stigma surrounding vulnerability have all contributed to a culture of silence, where injuries are often downplayed and mental health struggles ignored. This shift in mindset begins with education. From a young age, boxers need to be taught about the potential risks of the sport, not just the potential rewards. They need to understand that seeking help for an injury or acknowledging mental health struggles is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and self-awareness. Trainers, as mentors and trusted figures in a boxer's life, play a crucial role in fostering this culture shift. They need to prioritize their fighters' long-term health over short-term gains, encouraging them to speak up about injuries and supporting their decisions to take time off for recovery. Section 5. A shared vision. Towards a more sustainable future for boxing. The future of boxing depends on a collective commitment to change, a shared vision for a sport where the pursuit of glory doesn't come at the expense of a fighter's long-term health and well-being. This requires a fundamental shift in how we view the sport, from the way it's governed and regulated to the way it's perceived and discussed. It's time to move beyond the romanticized image of the lone warrior battling against all odds, his body a weapon, his pain a badge of honor. It's time to embrace a more nuanced perspective, one that recognizes the human cost of every blow inflicted and every punch absorbed. The quest for a safer ring is not about sanitizing boxing or stripping it of its raw athleticism. It's about honoring the courage and dedication of those who step between the ropes by doing everything in our power to protect them. It's about ensuring that the sport we love doesn't leave a trail of broken bodies and shattered minds in its wake. Section 1. The paradox of the ring. Brutality and beauty. Boxing exists in a realm of contradictions. It is a sport of raw brutality, where the objective is to inflict physical harm on another human being. Yet within that violence, there is a strange and undeniable beauty, a display of athleticism, strategy, and sheer willpower that captivates audiences worldwide. We marvel at the speed of a fighter's punches, the agility of their footwork, the artistry of their movements within the confines of the ring. We admire their courage, their resilience, their willingness to push themselves beyond their limits. But even as we celebrate their triumphs, we cannot ignore the inherent dangers they face every time they step between the ropes. This paradox lies at the heart of boxing's enduring appeal. It is a sport that simultaneously repels and attracts us, forcing us to confront our own capacity for both violence and empathy. And it is this duality, this uneasy tension between brutality and beauty, that makes boxing such a compelling and enduring spectacle. Section 2. The Fighter's Dilemma, a Calculated Risk. For those who choose to step into the ring, boxing is more than just a sport. It is a way of life, a calling, an escape from poverty, or a chance to etch their names in the annals of history. They understand the risks, the potential for injury, the long-term consequences of repeated blows to the head, and yet they fight on, driven by a complex mix of ambition, desperation, and an almost primal urge to test their limits. This calculated risk is an integral part of boxing's allure, both for the fighters themselves and for those who watch from afar. We are drawn to the courage of those who are willing to put their bodies and minds on the line, who stare down fear and step into the unknown. But as we marvel at their bravery, we must also acknowledge the heavy toll that boxing can take. The decision to fight is a deeply personal one, often shaped by factors beyond an individual's control. Poverty, lack of opportunity, the lure of fame and fortune. And while we can admire the courage of those who choose this path, we must also strive to create a world where such choices are not made out of desperation, but out of a genuine love for the sport and a clear understanding of its risks and rewards. Section 3. The Evolving Landscape, a Sport in Transition. Boxing, despite its long and often troubled history, is not a static entity. It is a sport in transition, grappling with its own legacy of violence and striving to find a safer path forward. The growing awareness of boxing-related injuries, particularly the long-term consequences of repeated head trauma, has forced the sport to confront its demons and embrace change. The push for stricter safety regulations, improved medical care, and greater support for retired fighters is gaining momentum. Advancements in medical technology are providing new tools for diagnosing and treating neurological injuries, and a growing chorus of voices, from former champions to concerned physicians, is calling for a more compassionate and responsible approach to the sport. This evolution is not without its challenges. The sport's deeply ingrained culture, the financial incentives that often prioritize profit over safety, and the inherent brutality of boxing itself all pose significant obstacles. But the pursuit of a safer ring, while complex and multifaceted, is a fight worth fighting. Section 4. The Weight of Legacy, Honoring the Past, Protecting the Future. Boxing's history is filled with tales of triumph and tragedy, of legendary champions and fallen heroes. The names of those who have graced the ring, Ali, Louis, Marciano, Robinson, are etched in the annals of sport, their legacies intertwined with the sport's own evolution. But as we celebrate their accomplishments, we must also acknowledge the price many paid for their time in the ring. The stories of fighters battling dementia, struggling with addiction, or facing financial ruin are a stark reminder of the sport's human cost. Honoring their legacy means more than just remembering their names or marveling at their exploits on grainy film. It means learning from their sacrifices, advocating for greater safety measures, and ensuring that future generations of fighters are not condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past. Section 5. Beyond the blood sport, Finding Humanity in the Heat of Battle. It is easy to view boxing through a lens of violence, to focus solely on the brutality of the sport and the damage it inflicts. But to do so is to miss the nuances, the complexities, the human stories that unfold within the confines of the ring. Boxing, at its core, is a test of will, a battle against an opponent and against oneself. It demands discipline, dedication, and an unwavering belief in one's abilities. And within that crucible of competition, moments of grace, sportsmanship, and even compassion can emerge. We see it in the fighter who helps his opponent to his feet after a knockdown, in the trainer who consoles his charge after a tough loss, in the moments of shared humanity that shine through the sweat and blood. These glimmers of empathy remind us that even within the most brutal of arenas, the human spirit can endure and even thrive. Section 6. A call for compassion, shifting the narrative. The narrative surrounding boxing has long been dominated by tales of violence, exploitation, and tragedy. While acknowledging these realities is essential, it is equally important to shift the narrative, to highlight the positive aspects of the sport and the ongoing efforts to make it safer. We need to celebrate the stories of fighters who have used boxing as a platform for social change, who have overcome adversity to achieve greatness, and who have retired from the sport with their health and dignity intact. We need to recognize the trainers, physicians, and advocates who are working tirelessly to protect fighters and improve the sport. By shifting the focus from the brutality to the humanity, from the exploitation to the empowerment, we can begin to change the way boxing is perceived and create a more compassionate and sustainable future for the sport. Section 7. The enduring allure of the squared circle, a legacy redefined. Boxing, despite its inherent dangers and its often troubled past, will likely always hold a certain allure. There is a primal fascination with the spectacle of two warriors battling for supremacy within the confines of the ring, a testament to the enduring power of human strength, resilience, and the will to compete. But the legacy of boxing, the story it tells about ourselves and our relationship with violence, does not have to be one of inevitable tragedy or senseless brutality. We have the power to redefine that legacy, to embrace the sport's positive attributes while mitigating its risks, and to create a future where the pursuit of glory doesn't have to come at such a high cost. The quest for a safer ring, for a more compassionate and responsible approach to this ancient and demanding sport, is a challenge worthy of our attention and our efforts. And as boxing continues to evolve, it is up to all of us, fighters, trainers, promoters, fans, and everyone in between, to shape its future and ensure that its legacy is one of courage, resilience, and ultimately, humanity.